Welcome to Your Vote, Your TV's extensive coverage of the 2025 provincial election. I'm your host, Mark Rockburn, and in the next half hour, we'll introduce you to the Liberal candidate for the riding of Northumberland-Peterborough South, Dorothy Noronha. Dorothy, welcome. Thank you. And so certainly not the way we wanted to meet each other. Unfortunately, the day of this taping is February 13th. The weatherman didn't cooperate for you to make it into the Your TV studios, but still a great way to introduce yourself to the riding of Northumberland-Peterborough South and the people that are going to be voting in this election. Thank you and welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So let's go back to who you are. And we'll start there. And we start this interview with kind of a blank canvas because really this is your half hour to make a pitch to the residents and the voters of Northumberland-Peterborough South as to why you should be the next MPP. So let's start right out of the bat. Who's Dorothy?
Oh my goodness. So unfortunately, we only have a half hour. It's been a long and storied journey that has brought me here, and it's I often say all roads lead to where we are right now. I mean, obviously they always do, but in this particular case, it's been a series of experiences as well as histories and choices, I guess, that have brought me here. And it is absolutely 100% a choice in terms of us living in Northumberland-Peterborough South. I often refer to my name, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and Northumberland-Peterborough South, no place like home. It truly is a beautiful place to live, even on a day right now where we've got snow up to our eyeballs. We live in beautiful Alnwick-Haldeman, so dead center of the riding, back onto the Northumberland Forest. And as I was scrambling because of internet, and that's I'm sure a frustration that lots of folks have in the riding that I'm living. It's definitely one of maybe one of the not so silver linings of living here, but again, an opportunity for sure. In terms of I was born to Polish immigrants. Are you going way that back? Yeah, because it's all very important. In the sense that I came here for a better life. There was basically my mom, my dad, my brother who was born in England, and my paternal grandmother who came along, and we loved the country in the sense that it was very much like home. And my dad was a nomad. He didn't really like the office life, and he said, let's keep heading north. And so I ended up doing my high school in beautiful Gravenhurst, Ontario, in Muskoka. So again, found lots of parallels in terms of life there as well as life here. I did, however, choose to go to university. Did I choose? No, we were forced to go to university because as immigrants, that's what you did. You went to school and you went for a life that was better for our parents than what we had. That was sort of the Canadian dream, right? And it still is, but I hope that we make it better in the sense of opportunities for our kids. It was always an automatic. If you work hard and you educate yourself, good things will happen. And I feel sometimes that especially with youth, because I see them every day. I'm almost apologetic when I talk about how things were, and they shake their heads. You know, Miss Noronha, you're kidding me, right? People could buy a house in their 20s, really? People got jobs right out of university, and how much was tuition? Those are hard conversations to have with kids, but. Anyway, I digress. I ended up going to the University of Toronto. My degree is in Commerce and Labor Studies. And from there, I worked in employee benefits and pensions for a number of years. And from there, I went into wealth and estate planning. I'm actually a certified financial planner. And when both of the organizations that I worked with were absorbed by another bigger conglomerate, I ended up actually going into healthcare of all things. Thankfully, not looking after people because that would have gone badly, but I was a revenue generator for North York General Hospital. I established their third-party diagnostic imaging operation that they had there. And then we ended up doing something Seemingly not logical, we moved from Toronto to beautiful Campbellford, Ontario. I thought it was perfectly logical myself. It was a beautiful part of the country, but my husband pointed out, this is 2 hours away. And it came to light, yes, this is a long way from home. So I decided to go to teachers college. And so at age 42, I became a secondary school teacher with the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. What was a move to make life easier ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made. The opportunity to take those years of business experience and bring them to the youth of our riding has been fulfilling 100 times over. When I look at those students that have gone on to be entrepreneurs themselves, from fashion design to arborists to accountants, and they all come back and say, I'm in the top of my class because of the things you taught me, because of the relevant things that you brought from business. And I always say that's always the most gratifying thing is when I hear back from them and they say, look at the adventures that I've had because of the stuff that we've done. So yeah, that's sort of how we've come here. We've ended up moving from Campbellford here to Alnwick-Haldeman. My husband's grateful for that. His head office is still downtown Toronto. So the train from Cobourg was super convenient until it became not super convenient during COVID, as we all know. Was it train 651, I think is the number. It's come back to an extent, but boy, oh boy, what was COVID was horrible, but it was also silver linings in terms of our ability now to do things like this. Before that, people really had to go to the office where this wasn't a situation. I taught virtually for 3 years. However, for some reason, public transit hasn't come back the way it should have after COVID, and that it impacts everybody. I know people moved here during COVID thinking that they would have that train or that the promise of the GO train coming at least to Bowmanville would have been fulfilled by now. And it just seems like all of the expansions seem to be going west. They seem to be going north. And out here in eastern rural Ontario, we feel like I kind of feel like we're second-class citizens in terms of the things that we have to be more sustainable, to be more productive. So yeah, anyway, so here I am. I'm unemployed because I quit my job a week and a half ago as a teacher because I'm going all in. And honestly, I'm not sure if I could go back to teaching under the government we have currently. It's too wrenching to see my colleagues frustrated, and it's so hard to see the kids not have the supports that they need. So yeah, we got to go all in.
A lot of firsthand
That's me.
experiences here that from your answer that you gave me as to why you're running through your travels and through your life. You talked about your husband, the train not being there, a teacher, the challenges that you saw that you're facing there. But before we get to into some of the topics, have you ever ran politically before?
I actually have, and that was for a municipal councillor for Alnwick-Haldeman, and it was done on an impulse. I actually submitted my application. I think it may have been on the deadline, very, very close to that. And at that point, there were two running for 3 spots. And I actually did this not as a lark. I was actually speaking with someone who's quite involved in county politics, who was getting a little bit frustrated. And I said, would it help to have an ally? Would it help to have someone that's sort of working? And it was mostly towards things like social programs right now. So they're accessible in a lot of cases to folks within the major centers, but they're really so not accessible to those that are in the far-reaching areas. And housing and all those wonderful things that people need to have a good life. He was just finding that he was getting stymied. So I said, you know what? How about I run? I said, we'll see what happens. I'll either get in or I won't. But I just come off of actually being the campaign manager for Jeff Kosnick in the previous election. So I had some experience under my belt from the inside, and I thought, you know what, let's see what it's like on the other side. Keep in mind, virtually unknown in Alderman Calderman. It's such an expansive area, and that's really where the "No Place Like Home" tagline came from. Because when you look within, Northumberland-Peterborough South, it really is that forest call from lake to lake, and stunning. I mean, it was a fall election. It was beautiful, and uh, so from two candidates, it became seven that were going for the three. And I was overwhelmed that I almost made it. I came in fourth out of the
Wow.
seven as someone completely unknown, ground up, um, self-funded, and completely running it on my own. I had no volunteers. I put up all the signs. I did all the door knocking. Sorry, my husband helped as well. I should say that he's over in the other room, but he'll hear that. But it was 100% run by me, except, sorry, I have to say, Jeff Kosnick actually helped me put up signs because I'm not good with a power drill or a steak pounder. Now with the frozen, I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, so it was a great experience. Um, Definitely prepared me a lot for what we're doing right now, and because I'm big on silver linings. The silver lining was because I didn't get in. When the school approached me and said, "Hey, we actually need someone to help out." With basketball, and it's starting in November. And I said, well, if I get in as a counselor, absolutely can't do it. But if I don't, absolutely I can help out. And that began a 3-year career, extracurricular career, on the CCI senior boys basketball coaching team. Now, keep in mind, I love basketball. It is my passion. Do I know much about it from a technical perspective? Heck no. However, I'm a problem solver and I'm an organizer, and I can whip that up in a minute. So I became the third of the stool that was Clinton Cebulski as the head coach, Jamie Archer as assistant coach, and I guess you'd call me the manager, but also the one with the key because this particular team practices at 6:30 in the morning, 5 days a week. And so I got to tell you, there wasn't a long list of teachers saying I want to sign up for that. But for me, it was the best time of the day. It's my tonic. Going in and seeing these boys, actually, I start getting a little verklempt about this because I had to leave them behind, as well. They're actually going into playoffs tomorrow, finals for Cuartas, and not being on the bench makes me sad. But we all said this is our last dance. They knew that I was going to be running. I said it could be next year. I said hopefully it is next year because it's a big job, but it could be any time. And they're like, "So, coach, you're leaving us?" Yeah, yeah. I just don't know when. And so we called it our last dance because my grade 12s are leaving. And for those that are basketball aware, Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. And so last weekend they had a tournament, a fundraising tournament, so that hopefully, if they go further than finals and they go further than Costa, they'll go to the thing that shall not be named because we don't want to jinx it, and that requires a lot of money. So although this election is not timed the best, to put it mildly, as we're trying to pound stakes in, and people are in Florida, and it's so hard to get people out to vote. Um, it started right at the end of my semester, so I could leave things cleanly and not leave people in the lurch. And it's going to be over February 27th, which means whether I get in, hopefully, or I don't, I am able to then join the boys if they end up going further than CASA. But yeah, like I said, it's everything seems to happen for a reason. And like I said, with the municipal election, and I met so many amazing people. I made sure that I met every single person that was running. So, you know, John Logel, Grit Cole, Mike Ainsworth, who we are probably from where we come from up 180 degrees in terms of our interests, in terms of where we come from. He was probably the most simpatico person that I met in terms of we want to do the best for our riding. And I often said, man, wouldn't it be great if all politics were nonpartisan? If we could just get together and have a common view on what's the best way to solve problems, because he and I we clicked on that. And I know from a political perspective we're about as far apart as we can be, but we honestly had the best for the riding at the center. And there are places within our province that do that. I look at Kingston and the health the family physician thing that they're doing there. They're basically moving to like we do for a school system, where people are assigned a doctor based on postal code. Right. So just like, yeah, if you live in this neighborhood, you go to this school, you live in this neighborhood, you go to this doctor. It a bit of upheaval in terms of going through that, but it really, when you think about it, well, does not make sense. Why is it, we figured it out for elementary schools. How do we not figure it out for the most important thing, which is healthcare? And but that was done in a combination of all the layers, federal, provincial, municipal, all were working together on the same page. And I have to give kudos to Ted Hsu, who's the MPP out of Kingston, one of my mentors, as someone who crosses lines all the time when it comes to collaboration. That's the kind of thing that we need to be doing, and not just staying in our silos of, I'm red, I'm blue, I'm orange, I'm green. Like, we're looking after people. We need to be doing it together.
I'm gonna take a pause right there. It was a quick first half, 16 minutes of the show. So when we come back, we're going to talk about why you're running, and we're also going to talk about what you're hearing on this campaign trail. Don't go away. You're watching Your Vote, Your TV's extensive coverage of the 2025 provincial election. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Your Vote, Your TV's extensive coverage of the 2025 provincial election. I'm Mark Rockburn, your host, and for the remaining half of the second show, we're going to introduce you to the Liberal candidate for the riding in Northumberland-Peterborough South, Dorothy Noronha. So, Dorothy, why are you running in this election, and why are you running under the Liberal banner in this election?
So, I think when I talked about sort of how I came to this and all roads lead, it's kind of, that's sort of the next part, in the sense that I've worked in finance, I've worked in healthcare, and I've worked in education. Healthcare was during the Harris years, and one of the reasons I was hired is because they were strapped for cash in terms of, and when you look at things like diagnostic imaging, man, you had to travel for MRI technology, for CT scans, that sort of thing. So I was bringing in about $1 million a year that was being reinvested back in the hospital to provide services for OHIP patients, but also for places like WSIB and that sort of thing. When I was working on the financial side, it was solving problems for business owners in terms of, when I said I was doing employee benefits and pensions, it's how do we make you more profitable, more productive by looking after your people. And you can't look at things from a singular point of view. You need to have all points of view on that. And so when people ask, what's the one thing, or what's the one solution, and how are you going to solve? Normally my response is, I need to talk to people. I need to listen, and I need to get all points of view, because you can't operate in a silo when it comes to solving complex issues. So that journey coming through, having seen healthcare, now having lived through education, having kids and elderly parents. I mean, those of us that are in the sandwich generation, we know the issues with healthcare. And it astounds me in 6 years how our public institutions have been pummeled from that perspective. I didn't think it could happen that quickly, and it did. And I've like I said, I've been in education, so I've felt the $1,500 less per student that we're seeing compared to 2018. I recall I recall graduation in 2018, and it's such a great time. And kids go across the stage and they say where they're going, what program they're taking, and the number of kids that said, "I'm going to take a year. I'm going to take a gap year. I'm gonna go to work." And inside me, I'm going, don't, because in 2018 we had free tuition for those students that qualified. Our son, who graduated in 2019, didn't apply because of our income level, but that was such an opportunity. And I said, I don't think it's going to be around. And sure enough, one of the first things that was canceled was that income generated free tuition that allowed kids to get there. And in fact, those kids that went into second year, a lot of them had to drop out because they couldn't afford to stay. The response was, we're going to reduce tuition by 10%, and which was kind of a fib. It wasn't the government saying that we're going to pick up 10% of the cost. It was a directive to post-secondaries to reduce your tuition by 10%. That's not you reducing it. That's bullying. Sorry, shouldn't use that word. Forcing institutions to decrease their revenue stream. And we've seen what's happened. The direct result of that was the influx of international students because they had no other way to raise money at that point. And so suddenly, oh, we have too many international students, so we have to stop that. Well, now what are we going to do? We're going to cut programs. And you look at Loyalist College, you look at Fanshawe, you look at all these places that are cutting programs, and they're cutting trade programs of all things. The one area where we're lacking so much, and I'm not going to go into our current MPP, whose job is labor and training. I'm not going to go there, but I will. I'll have to, I guess, once we get into the face-to-face debate. But as someone who's at the front lines of the education part of things, when I hear students say, "Yeah, that's the program I wanted, but it's not available anymore. This is the place I wanted to go to, but they've cut back on spaces because they can't afford to. This is the apprenticeship that I want to go to that I did OYAP for, but now that I've done OYAP, there's no space for me." Like those are wrenching consequences from deliberate decisions that have made all the way across. So when people say, "Why are you running?" How can I not? How can you not address these issues when people are suffering, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, affordability, so many reasons. Our family's fine. Our kid has graduated. We have a nice home. We have the resources, but we're not fine until we're all fine.
Right.
And right now, we're not all fine in Ontario.
We have about 3 minutes here, so let's talk about.
Sorry about that.
No, it's perfect. I said to you during break, all the information you're giving is excellent information, and it's better to have the time spent as the candidate explaining why they're running rather than me trying to get information out of them. So no, this is great information, and I'm sure the people are going to love hearing from you because you are a fresh face. You're as you stated, you're new, even though you've been here for 20 years. You are kind of still new, and so. How do you get your voice out, and how do you get the name Dorothy Noronha out there for the Liberal Party?
Well, so that's, man, oh man, that is such a great question in the sense that finding out you're having an election in 2 days that should really be happening a year from now. The cynics in the crowd might say, "Gosh, was that deliberate? Was that something to ensure that we keep an incumbent in place?" 100%, that's what happened. But I what's the word? I fight, and I fight and I fight, and because it's the stakes are too high, and so we are using every resource at our disposal. Whether it's my poor sign guy Max, who's out there after signs are ripped down and slashed. Which is that still a thing? Like, holy cow, are we that scary? Just leave my face alone. But whether it's mail drops or whether it's paid dials, we have a very tight, lean machine, but with so much talent. And when I look at and I know the question, which maybe we didn't get to, was why the Liberal Party. I've been involved in various parties. When I look at the team that we have together right now, there is such depth and there's such breadth in terms of problem solvers that are ready, to use the phrase, get it done. In healthcare alone, we have two emergency room physicians. One of them, the previous president of the OMA, Rose Zacharias. We've got Lee Fairclough, who is the president of St. Mary's Hospital in Kitchener. Tyler Watt, the PN, RNA. Like, we have so much experience on the healthcare side, and then in all the others as well. We're so well equipped to solve problems. It's just like, we need to get at it. We need to get it done.
Dorothy, that was a very, very, very quick half hour. Lots of information out there for the voters, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with yourTV to talk about the election, and I wish best of luck to you.
I appreciate that. Hey, the universe gave us a snow day, so why not take advantage of that?
You've
Thanks
been
so much,
watching
Mark.
yourTV's extensive coverage of the 2025 provincial election. Election day is February 27th, but you can vote in pre-election. So take the time, look to see when and where you can vote, and get out and vote. It's the most important thing you could do as an Ontarian.